Thank you, everybody, and welcome to Dawlish Town Council's planning meeting. It's the 14th of the 1st, 2021, and it's just gone 7 o'clock. So let's start with the normal agenda, please. We'll take everything as read, but let's start off, please, if I can ask you, Yola, for apologies for absence. Thank you.
There were none.
Excellent. I think we have got a full house tonight, which is wonderful. We don't have an agenda part 1 and 2, so we'll ignore that. Does anyone have any declarations of interest, please, for any items this evening? Councillor Gary Taylor and Councillor Alison Foden. Let's take them one at a time. Please unmute. Sorry, Gary, please unmute.
I have an interest in the item on Southview and will not be taking part in the debate on that particular item.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alison Foden and then Councillor Mary Lowther.
Okay, so I'd just like to declare an interest that I know the applicant of Southview and I know the family quite well. However, I would like to take part in the discussion if I'm allowed.
Okay. And are you planning on voting on that as well? Are you saying that you want to vote?
I would like to, if I'm allowed to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Mary Lowther, you're next, and I can see Councillor Martin Wrigley wants to come in afterwards.
Yes, I think it's called a pecuniary interest that we have, and I'm not certain whether we all have it. So maybe Yola's got a hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right in assuming that the application that Councillor Taylor's declared an interest in is his own application. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes. That is the case. So yes, I have a pecuniary interest. I don't know.
Yes. So it would be non-pecuniary for everybody else. If you're following what has happened previously, several months ago, we did have another application for a town councillor that wasn't actually on the planning committee, and it may have been a slightly different committee to this one, but the entire committee declared an interest because they didn't feel it would be appropriate to comment. My understanding is it would go to full committee at Teambridge anyway because of the position of said councillor. So it depends how you would feel. Obviously, if you've declared an interest and you still wanted to vote, you probably would need to sort of highlight that beforehand. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Was there any other point you wanted to make, Mary, or I will carry on to another councillor?
No, it's just on the. To me, I feel that we shouldn't be discussing it.
Okay, that's fine. I will come back to that point in just a moment.
Thank you.
Councillor Wrigley, you wanted to speak, and Councillor Moorhood following that. Thank you.
I clearly need to declare an interest in that same one, in terms of being close personal friend.
Thank you. And Councillor Moorhood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel I have to disclose an interest because the applicant is a member of this planning committee. Yeah,
that's fine. I mean, Councillor Taylor, I was just going to make a comment, but you carry on if you wanted to come back.
I just wanted to come back on the comment that our clerk made. And yes, I understand the matter will be going to the Teambridge District Council's Planning Committee, but that is on account of the fact that I am a Teambridge District Councillor, not a member of Dawlish Town Council.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Okay.
For clarification for other members.
Councillor Lowther, you have your hand raised. Did you have another point you wanted to make? No.
Well,
okay.
No. Am I supposed to take it off myself? I don't know.
It looks like you do. Do it yourself today, if that's okay. You've done it anyway. That's right.
Oh, I did it.
Okay, thank you, Yola. We have got the option. I've talked about this with Clark before the meeting. As we all are, we all know Councillor Taylor as a town councillor. Some know him perhaps and his house more than others. But it could be that we could defer this completely to Teambridge District Council, or as some members have said, they would quite like to speak on the item. We can just have it on the people who want to speak on the item and discuss. My feel is that is the former. I think it's far better, as I think the majority of us know Councillor Taylor, and I think it would be far better and more independent, as it is going to be going to district council, for us to just take that as something that we will just all declare an interest in that sense, and it will move on to go to the district council, as you recommended, really, Yola, as we discussed about before.
Yeah, it basically is just following a practice that we've had previously with another councillor, so it would just be following suit. But obviously, it's different councillor, different group, but that is what's happening.
That's absolutely fine. That's fine. Obviously, my question originally was declarations of interest. I didn't know if there were any others. I knew there was going to be a few about that one particular item. So thank you, members. If there are no other declarations of interest, then we will take that item as being of interest to all members present, and we'll be moving that to go on to the district council. So we won't be considering that, if that's okay. So let's move on now to the minutes of the last meeting. Can I ask if everybody, if you're not on mute, could you, you're getting some background noise, so could I ask you to put yourself on mute if you're not on mute, please? Thank you. We have the minutes of the last meeting to consider on the 17th of December. Seems like years ago now. Have all members had a chance to have a look at that, and are they happy for me to sign that as a true record of the meeting, please? Could I have a show of hands if that is the case? Thank you very much. That's everybody. Thank you. Right, let's move that on to correspondence, if that's all right. Yola, please.
Yes, certainly. Okay, so yeah, so applications granted in support of this council's recommendation. 26 Gilpin Close, first floor side extension and single story rear extension. 40 Exeter Road, enlarged raised deck to rear and lengthened side extension. Car park near Cost Cutters, 22 to 24 Queen Street, Fell 1 self-seated sycamore. 56 Littleweek Road, new detached garage. 56 Westcliff Road, demolition of existing redundant residential home and formation of 18 dwellings with associated works. Seafields, 34 Holcombe Road, extension to existing rear balcony. Hydraulic Projects Limited, Dawlish Business Park, 2-story extension and single-story link extension. Applications to be considered in a virtual meeting by Teignbridge District Council Planning Committee on Tuesday 19th of January, starting at 10 AM. Golden Sands and Peppermint Park. Warren Road, use of land for stationing of static caravans, repositionings of play area, equipment and associated works. Site of Shell Cove House, 19 Old Teignmouth Road, formation of 6 dwellings, garages and associated works.
Okay. Thank you. And both of those items, I think, are from quite considerable time ago. Councillor Taylor, you have your hand raised. Can you unmute, please? Thank you.
There we go. Yes, interesting that the Westcliff Road scheme has finally been approved. It's been some time since that application came forward. So there's obviously been a lot of batting about between the applicant and the authority to get an approval there. But obviously, from my point of view, from a Teignbridge point of view, great that we've got those houses. I think it was a reasonable scheme at the end of the day that we all felt that we all could get behind.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Councillor Moore, do you have your hand raised?
If I could just check, because as you say, some of these are well back. That's on the site of the Devon County Care Home.
Dorvale,
that's right.
Yeah.
Dorvale.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We will. I don't believe we have any members of the public or anyone else joining us to speak tonight, so we will go on to the new applications for consideration. And the first one, as it happens, does also come from Golden Sands. Thank you, Yola, for sharing the screen. This is variation of condition 3 on planning permission, and this is consideration of extending the time that holiday units can be occupied for holiday purposes for a period of 2 weeks. Normally, it's from the 1st of March to the 14th of February. What they're asking for is an additional 2 weeks in addition to this year. Okay, so we'll just all have a look at this this item. Hopefully you've all made yourself familiar with it anyway. And I can see I've got some members who are waiting to speak. Councillor Mary Lowther and Councillor Val Moorhood, in that order, please.
Yes, thank you. It really is to do with the wording of the application. I did notice there is a mistake because they've got written 1st of March to the 1st of February, and that should be the 14th of February in 2016 when they were awarded that. That's it.
Yeah, I think there is an error there, but it's
yeah.
It should be the 14th. It should have the 14th.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah, because what they're asking for is that additional 2 weeks of the 14th to the end of February.
It's more or less exactly the same as they got.
Yeah.
They just want now more. And I'm almost certain we discussed this at our last meeting, didn't we?
Sorry, Chair, there does appear to be already a Dawlish Town Council response on the website from the 16th of December.
It was an extension request.
Ah, an extension request. The case officer is happy to await the comments of your parish council. My apologies.
Okay, so we're here to make the comments.
But,
okay, thank you.
Very similar application to last time.
Yes.
And we put in a request to go to committee and did have something back which was circulated, just to remind you all.
Which we heard earlier on, Chair, didn't we? From Yola.
We did.
That was going to committee. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's right. Yeah. So, Councillor Lowther, if you've got anything more you wanted to add, or can I move on to? Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, first of all, I don't know how we can consider something when the dates aren't correct. This is how mistakes happen and extensions get granted to holiday parks. It has happened in the past. The other one is, I recall what Yola was just telling us, what she circulated when we said that we were concerned that these kind of extensions were positively encouraging units to be used as permanent residents. And I do have concerns about that because it distorts lots of things. It distorts the polling in the area because if it's not somebody's permanent residence officially, they can't vote. It distorts the need for extra housing, and it affects the amount of local council tax that is collected, because to the best of my knowledge, and this is going back a while now, but I understand that the parks themselves, the park owners, pay a different kind of rate, count of tax. So I think it's not a good move in any direction. And once you allow one camp to do this, I can assure you they all do, because that's how they've got now, that instead of having a couple of months off a year and then a month off a year, it's now down to just a couple of weeks, almost. So I'm very concerned about this kind of application. I don't know why it's needed, unless it's so that people don't have to move out. But at the first application, I understood was a temporary one. So we thought that, well, I would have thought that might have been because people didn't want to move to a different area because of COVID. But this doesn't look like a temporary one. And I'm very cautious about it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Councillor Martin Wrigley.
Thank you. I think we've got a little bit of confusion here. There's certainly been a lot of confusion from the local residents who have spoken to me about this. The planning application that's going to Teambridge on Thursday next week, the 19th, is the old application from 2018, where they're looking to extend their caravan sites into what is now a camping field. I don't believe this one is currently scheduled to go to the thing. And I'm not convinced. I may be misremembering, but I thought it was a different park we had make the same application last time. Perhaps the clerk can clarify.
Yeah, carry on, Yola. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it confused matters having a Golden Sands in the correspondence, which was unrelated, talking about committee. So at the last meeting, we had Dawlish Sands, and it was a very similar application with the additional 2 weeks, which at the time councillors resolved unanimously to refuse it due to the unsuitability of holiday accommodation for permanent residents, and it was set an undesirable precedent should it be encouraged and should not be encouraged. It was further resolved to put it to Teignbridge District Council Planning Committee should the officer be minded to approve for the reasons given. Then the correspondence that came back from Teignbridge regarding that request was circulated prior to Christmas, I think. Oh no, when we came back. So yeah, it was, and they said that the reasons weren't valid, basically, that were given. And obviously it was circulated to everybody, but this application is very similar in its wording. So whatever Teignbridge came back with regard to the last recommendation, and if you were minded to give the same recommendation and request the same thing, you would be likely to get the same response back from Teignbridge, is probably the thing that I was trying to flag up in circulating it. But yes, it was a different application, but very similar with the extra 2 weeks.
Thank you, Yola.
Okay.
So in essence, what we're saying is that when we were worried about the other park copying Dawlish Sands, they have done exactly that with this application. One other point of clarity, please, Yola. I understand that the call in to committee was refused because we didn't give a valid reason for it to be called into committee.
Yeah.
I didn't understand from the email that came back, or at least from my rapid reading of it, was whether that meant that all of our objections were thrown out because they were not valid planning reasons, or whether it was simply the call into committee that was thrown out because it was not a valid reason.
I don't know is the honest answer. Certainly the call into committee was not a valid reason, but obviously they should be taking into account any comments. But then if they say that it's irrelevant to that, I guess that they would consider that to be the same. Because I think they gave some wording that there was something still in place that should stop whatever the fear was, I think. I know Councillor Moore had responded with further information to that email, so that might also prompt some memories about it. But yes.
And just a further point of clarification, is this current application for Golden Sands in the same way as the one previously for Dawlish Sands temporary for this 1 year only, or is it a permanent extension into this 2 weeks?
As I understand it, it is for 1 year as part of government legislation to support the tourist industry. That's the proviso that they've put in the fine print of this application. Sorry to jump in there, Yola, but I thought I would.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I was just trying to establish an agreed set of baseline that we could discuss upon this.
Yeah, the clarification for the last one was, on this occasion, it was considered that the request was not valid due to the material planning reasons stated not being relevant to the determination of the application. And it went on to talk about another condition that was already in place. So obviously you would need to read those for this one to see if it was the same sort of thing, but I would imagine it would be. Also, I think these two applications did come in at the same time. So I don't know whether it's something that kind of went across the board, but this one was slightly delayed. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
My feeling is that our same level of objection should probably be reflected against this application as it was for Dawlish Sands, but I suspect we might want to look for a more robust planning reason to back up that objection. And so in those terms, I would propose that we object along similar lines, but I would like to see if we can come up with reasons that are more acceptable to the planning department to reflect our concern on the change of use. Although having said all of that, I don't believe that restrictions will be lifted by the 14th of February, so I suspect this is entirely academic.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Wrigley. I have some of the hands raised. The next person being Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chair. Just reading the original bit. It's going back a moment. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely
okay,
fine.
Right. Fine. I'm not sure about volume. These dates, I can't quite find the ones you're saying are wrong. 1st of March to the 14th of February, which is obviously the following year is the February. So
yeah.
Which bit are we saying on what part they've typed wrong?
If I may, Chair, there is
please carry on.
Between the words in our agenda in front of us and the words on the planning portal for Teambridge. So there was a typo, and it should have been, instead of 1st of March to 1st of February, as stated in our agenda, it should have been 1st of March and 14th of February inclusive, as it is stated on the Teambridge planning portal. So it looks like there was a typo that may have been corrected since our agenda was put together.
Yeah.
Right, so we probably haven't got an objection on that, because otherwise we shouldn't be talking about it if they got the paperwork wrong. Yeah, I'm going along with virtually everything that's been said. It looks like we need to repeat what we did on the other site. Try and find, as Councillor Wrigley just said, perhaps a few extra reasons. There are about 4 objections and a comment. Obviously people nearby are not very happy about it, and they've brought up points like we brought up. They won't be paying any council tax, etc., etc. Of course, the thing does pose me, if they go to 52 weeks of a year, don't know whether anyone here, perhaps Councillor Wrigley might know the answer to this one. If they pay 52 weeks, which is basically what it would be, would they then be liable to council tax, or is there still some rule that they wouldn't be because they just pay rent to the holiday centre? Because I think that's a big thing. It might even be another objection. What do we know what the answer on that one is? Or do you want me to repeat it?
I think we heard clearly. Councillor Wrigley, if you'd like to answer that, that's fine.
I'm trying to.
My understanding is that they are registered as businesses, and so the whole site pays business rates. They are not registered as homes. I don't believe this planning permission would switch that registration across for this 1 year. It would remain registered, I believe, as a holiday park, and therefore would continue to pay business rates as opposed to council tax. So I don't think this gives them the right to live there permanently. I think it gives them the right to be there for the extra 2 weeks of this year alone.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. If I could just finish that then. In that case, then I would object to this, because there is no reason for them to have the 2 weeks whatsoever. It's just there. Although the thing says temporary, I'm not so sure many of us would believe that, because it could be renewed and renewed each year. So at the present moment, it looks like a no from me.
Okay.
Chair,
Thank you for that.
if I may, I know we have other members wishing to speak, but I wonder whether it'd be useful to read out the government written statement. It's not legislation; it's a written statement regarding such.
Yeah,
matters.
if you've got it there to hand, Councillor Taylor, that might be useful. Thank you.
I have, and there's a link from the second document up in the planning portal for this particular planning application. It's the letter from the applicant to the local authority. In their opening paragraph, it says, "We write to you in reference to an application by Park Holidays UK Limited, owners of the above site at Golden Sands Holiday Park, to temporarily extend the operating season of the site in accordance with government pro-business initiative for caravan parks, published online on the 14th of July in response to the COVID-19 pandemic." And if you go to the government website and go right down to the bottom of the page, "Can caravan occupants use their caravans as a permanent residence if they have no alternative accommodation because of the impact of coronavirus?" And it says, "The government is aware that there are people who, for a variety of reasons, do not currently have any access to a permanent residence and may use holiday caravan parks for interim or main residential purposes. Whilst the government does not comment on any potential breach of licensing and planning conditions, our priority during the COVID-19 pandemic must be the safety of the public and the containment of the virus. The NPPF already emphasises that planning enforcement is a discretionary activity, and local planning authorities should act proportionately in responding to suspected breaches of planning control. Now, we're not talking about enforcement here. Given the current situation, while local planning authorities must have regard to their legal obligations, they are encouraged to exercise their discretion and not seek to undertake planning enforcement action to ensure that wherever possible, families and vulnerable people are not displaced at this time. However, careful consideration should be given where these sites have restrictions related to winter flood risk. So what the government appears to be saying is, whatever planning decision the authority may come to, if they then find that enforcement would perhaps be necessary because of a flouting of the rules, my words, not government's, then at that point the local authority should exercise discretion,
right?
Which wasn't quite, I think, what the applicant perhaps was talking about. There is other wording here. Will permission be granted if no? What's it? The licenses. Who must a local planning authority consult if they receive an application? No. Right. Okay. Variation of conditions. What should local planning authorities do if they receive an application to vary planning conditions to permit opening beyond the usual summer season for a temporary period? So the summer season extends, of course, from the 1st of March to the 14th of February, as we well know. Where local planning authorities consider it appropriate to require an application to vary relevant planning conditions, where, for instance, there is a risk of flooding or where parks are situated close to protected sites, they should prioritise the application and make an early decision to provide certainty to caravan, campsite and holiday park operators. In doing so, they should consider the benefits of longer opening season times for a temporary period to the local economy as it recovers from the impact of COVID-19. So the question that I think we should be asking is whether we word any response we may wish to make along those lines, that it is a temporary variation of a condition. So perhaps that might help members. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Taylor. I've got 3 other members wanting to speak. Councillor Alison Foden, if you'd like to go first, please, as we've already heard from Councillors Mary Lowther and Val Moorhood, but you'll be next as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So alarm bells ring when I read this, because it says to allow the holiday units to be occupied for holiday purposes between 14th of February and the end of February. We are still in lockdown and there's no sign that lockdown will be lifted before the 14th of February. The signs are that we haven't yet reached the peak, and I suspect that lockdown will be through those dates in the application, and that's why alarm bells ring.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and next we have Councillor Mary Lowther, please.
Thank you.
Sorry for your wait.
Yeah, it was kind of a bit frustrating because I had written down here quite a few of the answers that people were asking. It was Park Homes who then own Dawlish Golden Sands Holiday Park. You know, when people say, no, it's the same thing, it is the same thing. And when they had the planning application they're talking about in the 16, I've lost my place. Yes, it must have been 2016. There is a clause in there that not to be used more, people not to be in them for more than 6 months. So there is a clause in the actual permission that they were given. So, but this is just this kind of fortnight, isn't it?
It
And
is.
maybe it is. I think at this time, as Councillor Taylor said, we get the word in that it is temporary for 1 year only type of thing. And let's see how it goes from there. As Councillor Foden said, there's not going to be anybody going. So they can't use it for holiday people this year. So I think it's the wording, but they are definitely, the implication is that they're trying to get rid of some of the clauses that are already in this application, the 16, lost it again, application, because it was applied, obviously it had been talked about a lot when they got the first permission, and it definitely states no more than 6 months, and they have to take the names, addresses, all this, that and the other, and they say that is to stop people being permanently in the homes. So it's all written in it. So I'll shush now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lather. Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, yes, I'm alarmed and alerted. Could Yola, could you tell us when this, the date when this was received and acknowledged, please, this application?
It did actually come in at the same time as the Dawlish Sands application, but was missed off the agenda through some unfortunate cutting and pasting, hence asking Teambridge whether it was all right that we could still get it back in time at the next meeting.
The date of the actual application.
Which, for Golden Sands?
For this one.
November?
If I may, Chair. Have it in front of me. It's the 27th of November that was received and validated. Publicity expiry 2nd of January. Target date 26th of February.
Thank you.
And it went, if I may, Chair, it went onto the website at Teambridge on the 1st of December.
I'm not really bothered about that. The point I was going to make is that this application is tantamount to invalid and unnecessary now. I would add to what Councillor Foden, our mayor, said. We are in a closed situation. There is not supposed to be any movement from one home to another. It's not going to change more than a couple of days at the earliest before the end of this date applied for. So it either means they would know by now that they cannot attract holidaymakers for those 2 extra weeks. So is it because, I mean, it could be because there are people there who want to stay because they can't go anywhere else for those 2 weeks. So I just think it's it's now, because of circumstances, it has become irrelevant. It's no longer, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. It's not something that we could consider at the moment because we would be going against government guidelines to do so, because there is supposed to be no travelling, no leaving home. So no holidaymakers can come here. And just to just a side note to what Councillor Mary Lowther was saying, yes, there are all kinds of restrictions on the different caravan parks and camping sites. A lot of them will say, for example, one I was chasing years ago for Dare, said they had to keep a register, and people in that particular site mustn't stay for more than 12 weeks, I think it was, in a year, and not more than so many people. But there is no system for actually checking those registers. There isn't, as far as I'm aware, the local authority doesn't have any kind of rota or system in place for actually checking anything. So it's a little bit pointless. But in this particular case, it's irrelevant now. They might have sent it in all that time ago, but circumstances have changed. No one can come on holiday here anyway, so I don't see that it's worth or appropriate to consider it. Sorry.
Okay, Thank you. Thank you for your point. I've got two other members who want to come back. Councillor Wrigley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I agree with Councillor Moorhood and Councillor Foden, and agree absolutely, this is probably moot in terms that it can't come to pass because of government lockdowns. I still think it is worthwhile this this committee registering its objection to extending the dates on these things. I would not like to see any planning application come through extending the dates of the holiday camps to be 52 weeks a year and establish a precedent without us noting it and noting the objection, because we do not think those are suitable places for people to live all year round, so we should not be encouraging it. So I would like to propose that we put in exactly the same objection as we did to the previous one. We could use exactly the same words, secure in the knowledge that it may not stand up in the planning, but also secure in the knowledge that in this case it won't actually come to fruition because the lockdown won't be relieved by February, mid-February. I would also like to propose that this committee writes to Teambridge and asks them to consider looking at, after the pandemic, to consider looking at and demanding evidence of the registers of all of the holiday camps in the area to actually enforce the 6-month rules or the various planning conditions on the sites.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you for that. I've got some other hands.
Yeah, I said I'll second this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lather. I was just going to say, I was just coming to Councillor Heath, who's also got his electronic hand raised. Councillor Heath, if you wanted to go ahead, and apologies if you were going to just get, you were just got your hand raised to second Councillor Wrigley, but
no, I wasn't actually.
Pip to the post. Fine.
No,
okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I wasn't actually, but you know, who knows? It could be, but it's too late. It's just a little bit confused here. I hope I'm saying this again as a devil's advocate for all of us. We're talking about COVID and the rules that were read out by Councillor Taylor.
Yep.
And then we're saying about, well, they can't go anyway because, the holidaymakers can't come here because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get the application, looking at the wording and what they're asking for. That is what they are asking for. As far as I can see, it's the other way around. Or am I wrong? That they want this to be changed so that their people that do live there, right, don't have to then drive for a long way, which is against COVID rules. So by leaving for 2 weeks, okay, they've got to break the COVID rules. So by allowing them to stay here, they actually don't break the rules. So there are 2 ways of reading this, unless I've got this wrong, which is quite a good reason for them to stay, as long as it's actually put the date when they must actually reapply for permission if they want to stay there. Now, I don't know if that helps or actually hinders that, that possible proposal, but let's get an answer on that one first. Which way around is it?
Having chased this down, Chair, may I elaborate?
Yeah, please carry on.
Anybody resident or occupying these holiday homes at the point of lockdown was required to return home to their registered place of primary dwelling before lockdown began. So the only people who should be there now are those people who already have exceptions for living in that space because they have nowhere else for them to practically go.
Yeah.
So even under this condition of the 2 weeks, they've already broken various rules from various different areas.
Right.
So they would still, this 2 weeks would not be relevant to them. I don't think they would be turfed out to go anywhere.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Moorhood, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. You've hit a sort of nail on the head there, Councillor Heath, but we wouldn't perhaps say that it might be that if people are living there, they don't want to move out because of COVID, but that's not our problem.
No.
I would like to see, if Councillor Wrigley was amenable to it, I would still like to see a reference to the fact that because of the delay in this date, the COVID situation has now overtaken, in some way, it has overtaken the actual application. It is no longer viable or permissible.
Okay. Councillor Wrigley, are you happy to I guess, maybe amend slightly the wording of that, taking into account Councillor Moorhood's comments?
I'm very
You were
happy,
nodding, so I'm taking it as
very
yes.
happy
But...
to amend it to account for that, just as long as we put in an objection to the extension of the time.
Okay, so we have a proposal made by Councillor Wrigley. I believe it was seconded by Councillor Mary Lowther. So I think we'll go to a vote, unless I can't see any more hands raised at all. So at this point, we'll go to a vote to reject this item.
Could I make an addition, please?
Well, we voted.
I was just going to say,
With
Councillor
hands in the
Taylor,
air
we have already voted, I'm afraid.
Okay.
If you want to make a comment, absolutely,
well,
but I'm
well,
afraid it's.
Yes, I would. So the wording of the previous application was that we resolve unanimously, and we're resolving again unanimously, recommending refusal of this application due to the unsuitability of holiday accommodation for permanent residents. It was set an undesirable precedent and should not be encouraged. And we requested it to go to Teignbridge District Council. I'm just wondering whether whether members are actually not wishing to put anything in about this being if the officer is minded to approve that we ensure that the wording temporary is also used in any permission.
I think that was in the wording that we. I think that was in the wording. Yola, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Clarify, because my interpretation of what just happened was you were voting in terms of the just having the same wording, that you were rejecting it, but that you, as the application was no longer viable or permissible due to COVID, you weren't necessarily taking it to committee. Also, probably on the understanding that the last time it was worded that way, it did bounce back anyway. Yeah. So my assumption was, just based from all that wording, that it was putting forward that unanimous rejection for those same reasons, with the note from Councillor Moorhood, which possibly explains why it's not going to that next step.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And the reality is that there is one planning committee meeting, which is the 19th of January. Next one will be some while away. And the chances of getting this through anything by the 14th, especially when their decision date is stated as the 26th of February, which is after the date we wanted this to start applying anyway. There is no time for it to go to committee, so it's an irrelevant comment on this. Yeah. My main thing in the proposal was to ensure that we put in the objection to the extension of the dates on this application, as we have done before.
Councillor Moorhood, are you satisfied with that, or have you an additional comment to make on this before we move on to the next item?
There was only one small thing when, but it doesn't matter if it goes in or not, but it was just a word that might make a difference. When Councillor Gary Taylor was regurgitating what we said before, and the reference was to encouraging permanent residence, I think it might be circumspect to saying potentially encouraging permanent residence, because we can't really state that, but that's up to you.
Okay, thank you.
May I just put in?
I didn't think we'd done with this one. Okay.
No, you haven't. Councillor Wrigley mentioned also asking for other things, and we've not mentioned that, and I thought that was all in what we were voting for.
Yes.
So please.
There was a list, there was a shopping list that I did want to clarify and have that read out first, I must admit, but we didn't get to that. We were just too eager to vote and sort this one out. Yes. But Do you want to, in retrospect, Councillor Wrigley, do you want to just go over again what we've just voted for? I think we all heard you the first time, but just to make everyone understand that.
Just because it's recorded, so people can now check whether I'm consistent on the two times. The first part was the refusal on the same basis as we did before. I'm happy to drop the bit about committee because it's pointless, but we add in the bit about it's futile with COVID restrictions anyhow, as per Councillor Morford's addition. Second bit was the piece where we as a committee write to Teambridge District Council to ask them post-pandemic, at a time suitable post-pandemic, to actually demand the evidence of the registers of the people living there for the certain times, to actually check that people are not breaking the planning and licensing conditions on these sites across the whole area.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, Yola, go on.
Yeah, is that part of the actual response to this particular application, or is this a separate thing? Because obviously, is that to be minuted as part of the response to this specific application, and or is this a separate thing that you want the committee to be writing? Do you want that still minuted as part of the minutes? Did you want that as something separate, as an additional note after that application response, or is it part of the response?
I think it's a separate action.
Yeah, I'd say it's a separate one.
With this particular planning application, it's to do with all of them and the principle of them being holiday homes and not permanent residents.
Yeah.
So is that for minuting or not minuting, or noting and taking away?
Minuting.
For minuting, but it doesn't have to go into the
not the actual response
application, but it should be in our minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Let's move on, ladies and gentlemen, to the next item. Thank you.
That's me, isn't it?
I'll just give Yola a moment just to note that. Thank you. Okay, and we're now going on to 20-02234 Oakhaven on Priory Road in Dawlish. This is change of use, a store being converted to a holiday let. And we're just waiting for the screen to share, I believe, Yola. I'm assuming that's your
Is that not sharing?
Nope. Sorry.
Okay. Try again. Sorry. Just bear with me 1 second. Now?
Yep.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you. So there we go. Change of use from store to holiday let and to class C3. Don't know if members are familiar with this property. It's not far from the footpath to Priory Mews that connects with the high street. So it's just at the very top of that path there. Corner of Priory Gardens.
May I ask a question, Chair?
Absolutely.
So it says convert from a store to a holiday.
Yeah.
I couldn't work out whether they were intending to increase the size of the building, which appears to be currently a garage. Yeah,
they're not. What they're planning on doing is putting I think there's a slight window, or you can see it on the side there. There's it in red. It's a kind of a garage with a courtyard between from the main building, and that's it. They're putting a window next to a door there, and that's really the conversion of it in that sense. That red item there on the elevation of the annex.
And the annex is just the upstairs piece?
It's It's downstairs. It's an upside down house, if you know what I mean, because of the slope. If you think of where Priory Hill is, it kind of goes down the slope from the road level. So the house there, there's the courtyard, and the main house where it's got Oak Haven, and it's that small square, which, as you can see from the plan, is just a kitchen, bedroom, small lounge, and the access is from the courtyard onto the road.
So if we can pause on that last picture there, the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah. Well done, Yella, thank you.
That one. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner there, which is the west elevation for the annex.
Yeah.
It shows a ground floor with the extra red door, as you describe. It shows steps up to an upper floor.
Yeah, I think that's the steps out to the, because that's on the courtyard, isn't it? As I understood it when I looked at the plans. I don't believe it's the upstairs of that. I'm happy to be corrected from that point of view, but that's how I interpreted it. That it was a lower floor, and the access to the actual property is through the courtyard.
It's a lower ground floor, I think.
Yeah, that's right. A lower ground floor to the courtyard. I've got some members with their hands raised, so we'll go to those if that's okay. Councillor Moorhood, you're next. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I had a look at this. It doesn't increase the floor area at all. It's the lower ground floor they want to change from garages. My only comment would be they've made a slight change inside on the first floor, if you like, which would have been their bedroom. It's all completely upside down. My only comment would be that they say there are currently 2 parking spaces, which presumably would have been the garage. And they're still saying they're only going to need 2 parking spaces. So it's not easy to see from the site plan how much of that area is drive. So I would just, we can't see from that, but Priory, the roads around there are very narrow. So I would like to see extra cars on the road. So I'm just hoping that there is parking in front of that lower ground floor where they did have the garage originally. There must be driveway, otherwise they couldn't have used it as a garage, but it's not clear from the plan. That's just a comment.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Taylor, you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, really, initially I was just wishing to confirm that it was the lower ground floor store that was being converted. The garage remains as is. So from the road, you won't see any change at all. It's a really matter of providing some accommodation in this storeroom and having permission to use it as a holiday let. Take the point with regard to parking. So it's a finely balanced decision, I would say, because yes, parking is a big issue in the town centre. On the other hand, we do allow new houses to be built in the town centre because of its very sustainable position, close to bus routes, train routes, etc. And who's to say that somebody who wants to come on holiday to Dawlish won't arrive by train, being so close to the station itself in Priory Road. So I don't think I've actually got as long as it's not a separate dwelling, I don't think I've got an objection to it being used as a holiday let. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Heath, please go ahead.
Thank you. I've actually lost the page I was looking at. This one actually is an old one, as you're probably aware, aren't you? It was approved many years ago, but it lapsed. So it's well over 3 years ago. I think it goes back to 93, but I've actually lost the date now. So this is almost like an update, and they've tweaked it. Obviously, none of us know what the original one was, and I don't think they supply the info, but it obviously was approved then. So it's a question of
sorry,
what additional... Yeah, carry on.
When I read this, I read this as the property's changed hands since the last application, and I think they have looked at the application and looked to reevaluate it and to reapply. They obviously consider it a good idea to actually put the application forward. So I believe this is a new owners reapplying, as it were.
Yes, you're right. I'm not quite sure what the law is on an application, whether when somebody sells a house, they can pass over the planning application if it's still in date. If they can,
Yeah,
it wouldn't be relevant then. But the thing is, what is relevant, it's already expired anyway. So it has to be a new application. All I was saying was that it isn't much different, I don't think, from the original, and it was approved. That doesn't mean to say we can't say no, because we don't like a few tweaks here and there. If we were to have mind to approve it, I think we should take up the points already discussed to say as long as there's parking on site. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. And if there isn't, then it's up to Tingbridge to decide on balance with Devon County Council whether it is going to cause a traffic problem. So that would be,
thank you.
I would like to add that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Heath. Councillor Mary Lowther, please.
Thank you, Chair. I kind of tried to see this, but I found it quite difficult to view it. Tingbridge kept telling me that I'd obviously not got the right equipment to do it. Am I right in thinking that there are 2 doors, you know, an in and an out? It suddenly dawned on me, nobody's mentioned how they would get out.
As I understand it, it's access through the courtyard, but if you'd be kind enough to share the plans again, Yola, just to clarify that, we can have another look at that. I know other members want to speak on this as well, but we'll just have a quick look at that and then I'll...
Yeah, but it's access and egress, I would put it. Because we all have a front door and a back door, don't we? So it was just safety.
Well, this is from the point of view of the store, the access is via the courtyard and then stairs up to the road, I believe. That's how I read it.
But is there another way that they can get out? That's
I
what
think
I'm
that's...
worried about. Is there only one entrance, and so the entrance is the entrance and the exit? So if there was a problem, they haven't got another way out, have they? But does that apply to both of them?
There is a note on, there is a note on the design if you want to look on it, on the Woods designs, and it actually says that it's been amended and upgraded to a 60-minute self-contained fire door and frame.
Okay.
The small lounge window will be increased in size to full height window with a fan light, although it doesn't say you can get out that one, unfortunately, which is a bit silly.
No, but if it's a fire door, that's, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So they have said that, but I think you could be right. It could only be the one exit, which is not good, but that's not uncommon for flats, is it?
No, I think that's the case, and that's where that red box comes into. We're having to kind of scrutinise the plans from that point of view.
Okay,
thank you for that. Councillor Valmore-Hood, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Only just a short comment, that's all. Unless things have changed, and I'm sure both yourself and Councillor Taylor and Councillor Wrigley could put me right, for some considerable time now, the reason we don't have suitable driveways and garages with modern houses because central government decided some years ago that if you live in a town or a city, you don't need a car. Simple as that. Thank you.
Strange new world. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Councillor Foden, please.
Okay, it was just to say in answer to Councillor Heath's question about parking, I've just had a look on the application form. It does say that the site does have 2 parking spaces and also 2 cycle spaces. So that's good.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've seemed to have exhausted comments from everybody, and I'm hearing a mixed bag of positive comments and negative comments, but the majority seems to be in the positive. So I'm happy to propose no objection to this item from the chair, and let's put that out there and see if anyone else has any comments to bring. Councillor Moorhood.
I'd be happy.
Sorry, you're muted, Councillor Moorhood.
I'm not now.
No, you are. That's right.
I would be happy to second that. I don't think there's any major problem with this. It seems a sensible use of, and they do also say for visitors or for holiday lets. So
yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so we have no other comments to be made. We've had a proposal and a seconder. So let's go to the vote, please, members, to accept as set out. Okay, thank you, Yola. Okay, let's move on to the next one, please. Obviously, we're going to skip over Southview and move on to the final item today, 20-02286, Clarendon House, 40 The Strand. So I had great difficulty with this one, trying to work out where it was and how it all works. And I think there's some photographs to try and help members as to this one. Hopefully you'll make sense of it as well. So 20-02286, and it's retiling the rear roof and replace dormer window, new dormer window to first floor. Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, Yola. I think we'll go back to members. And Councillor Moorhead, if you have your electronic hand raised, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm always very interested in anything in the conservation area. And they have quoted quite a few paragraphs from the Timbridge Dawlish Conservation Area Management Plan and character appraisal. And a lot of the things they say are quite correct. And they are talking of using original slates and so forth. I would like to just refer to a couple of other things that are also in there. Although this is the rear of the building, the main dormer that they're talking about changing the size of one as well.
Yeah.
I would like to be sure that looking at the other buildings, they all sort of butt onto each other. There's a mix of UPVC and wood and all kinds of things. And there's a rather nice Georgian sash window there, a wooden one as well, but they haven't mentioned they're doing anything with that. I would like to be sure that they are going to use appropriate materials for this dormer window and for any other woodwork or fenestration that they might be considering. Now, this application has only just come in. Not long ago anyway, with the holiday in between. And there is no comment from the Conservation Department at Timbridge. And so my feeling is, personally, I would have no objections, but I would like it to be subject to or to be referred to the Conservation Department for any comment or stipulations that they think they ought to make.
Are you making those statements as a proposal, Councillor Moorhead?
No,
it sounds awfully like it, but
everyone else needs to speak first, Madam Chair. But I do see that because there's been a short time between when this is coming in, and they are trying to adhere to the rules, but there's a little bit of a gap there where there is no comment from Timbridge conservation people. And although it's the rear of the house, I think that not just the slate should comply, the construction of the dormer window and other minor things should also comply.
Okay, thank you. I note there are some objections on the website as well, but maybe some other members will raise those too. Councillor Mary Lowther, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to comment that there is a conservation, a heritage statement for 40 The Strand, and on the conclusion that they kind of agree with it, with all the stuff that's being used. It's there, I printed it out, and that is planning application, the heritage statement. So it has come from Timbridge. So they are doing it. I don't quite know what it is. I did notice that one objection was something to do with one of the dormer windows overlooked the property next door, and they wanted to put a glazed, well, they're all glazed windows, aren't they?
They are. They wanted obscure glass, I believe, didn't they?
Yes, yeah. But then when I was looking at the plans, it looks as if there's an extra dormer being put in.
That's right, yes. A new dormer window, a slightly smaller one. So replace the dormer window, and a new dormer window is part of the application.
And there's also seems to be another window further down, you know where the Georgian window is?
Yeah, plus window on first floor, yes.
Yes, a small
window.
Small window on the first floor.
I think it says about additional light. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we need to look whether those windows are the windows that are overlooking the garden next door, or the property next door.
Okay, I think it's a courtyard, but yes, I take your point. Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah,
Councillor Lather.
You know, courtyard. You sit in a courtyard, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Moorhood, can I come back to you shortly, because there's other members who haven't yet spoken. Councillor Heath, you're next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is a complicated one, isn't there? There's lots of old bits and pieces and old laws involved here. Apparently, the person down below, I think it is, has got some sort of flying buttress of freehold, a very legal technicality, which he hasn't agreed to any scaffolding going up. Therefore, they couldn't build it at the moment unless he gives his permission. Although that's not a planning issue as such, but there is a lot of complications here, and I strongly
can of worms, I think it is.
Yeah, can of worms, and I can see the reason they want a better dormer windows. That's good. But I think what we should do, if we were of a mind to approve it, is to say that we would reserve judgment for the conservation area person to have a serious look at it to see if it complies, because, you know, we're not 100% certain, and also that the materials used in the alteration come up to modern insulation standards. In other words, they don't try and sort of bodge it and just replace something like for like, that it does actually have good insulation standards. I've actually had a personal run-in with the building regulations people over last week. There's lots of grey areas still, because the government still haven't changed lots of rules. You can still drill a great big hole in a ceiling on a flat roof, for example, and have no insulation underneath it because it's supposed to be a hot light, losing all the insulation. And the answer to that is, well, the government's rules aren't clear. So I think we probably need to be a bit smarter. So I would propose that we add that, if we do, using the modern insulation standards to the highest standard, so that they don't get away with some substandard alteration.
And that's you with your climate change
regs.
Hat. Yeah. That's you using your climate change hat. I understand that, Councillor.
Well, no,
this
actually has happened to me, and this is a fact that there's grey areas, and there is no regulations at the moment. They're being looked at by government since Glenville Tower, causing fires and heat, so they still haven't changed it. So you can still have massive holes. Yeah, you're right. It is about climate change, but it is crazy that you can have no insulation, a whole foot square. If you've got 6 lights, that's 6 square feet of no insulation. Is just ridiculous.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councillor Heath. We'll go on now to Councillor Wrigley, please. Councillor Carol Tamlin, I can see you have your hand raised. Don't worry, I'll bring you in as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just for clarity, I think the heritage statement is from the applicant and not from Teambridge, if I read that correctly.
Yeah.
And correct. The idea of the dormer being a matching dormer, the second new dormer being a matching dormer, suggests that it matches the new one that they're putting in to replace the old one, not that it's matching the old existing style and design. So I'm concerned about the style and design of the new additions, which don't appear to be specified in here, and concerned about the overlooking over the courtyard. But it would seem sensible to find some solution to be able to get more light and air into the flats and to save the timber roof and all the rest of it. So the scheme sounds good, but I would find at the moment there aren't enough details to be able to agree with it, because it doesn't actually specify quite what they're going to do with these dormers, other than that they will match each other. So I think it's lacking detail in a conservation area to make sure it fits in, and also lacking consideration for the privacy in the courtyard.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Tamlin, thank you. And then I'll be coming back to you, Councillor Moorhood. You're on mute still, Councillor Taylor, sorry.
Sorry, I've rotated I've opened the heritage statement and rotated it to try and get a better view of the plans, which are very faint, actually, aren't they? They're quite difficult to read, but actually the plans that are attached to the heritage statement are quite clear. But I've rotated it and now I can't unrotate it.
Okay, hence why you're leaning over.
The photos are like that, but the writing's like that. So, or is it the other way around? Depending on, because I'm looking at you as if I'm looking at a mirror on Zoom. You're looking at me as if you're looking at me. So I can't tell you whether it's left or right, or in your case, left or right.
Okay.
Anyway, the windows.
Thank you for your comments. I think
so the window. So this is all about new rear windows and a new rear doors. Front side's identical. Yes. The materials do appear to be specified. I don't know whether Councillor Heath might have opened up some of the other documents, but the materials are specified, and I'm sure they are materials that the conservation officer would be able to comment on. Of course, building control make their own comments. We're not here to look at building control matters, whether they comply or not. But I'm sure any good builder, any person who wants their work to hold up, including the applicant, I'm sure would want to
not always true, unfortunately.
The necessary regulations. Thank you, Martin. So the issue I have is that what is being replaced is essentially a sash style window. I can't quite make out from the photograph whether it's a proper sash window, but they're going to be replaced by casement windows with a triple window, two outers opening, with a fixed pane in the middle with a fan light above, which is, well, it would depend on what else is there, and we've only got photos of the house itself. It may fit in, it may not. Interesting that there's a Georgian window as well. So there's all sorts going on. The window, the single pane window that's being replaced, is being replaced by a casement style with a fan light opening above. In terms of objections to the scheme, if the objections are regarding overlooking, I haven't read all of them, but if the objections are regarding overlooking, then I don't think there's very much overlooking to be done from the new window. It wouldn't appear to be able to. You wouldn't appear to be able to see over the ridge of the subservient extension to the building. So I think in terms of privacy, I think that will remain pretty much as was. But I think I have to leave it up to other members to make their own minds up about sightlines on that. So I'm not sure about this one. I don't know if I can support it, because I'm very particular myself about windows being appropriate to the building, and I'm not sure that this is appropriate. Although if you go around the front of the building, there probably are casement style, as I recall from this building.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a mixed bag. Okay, thank you, Councillor Tamlin, and then Councillor Moorhood. Thank you for your patience, Councillor Moorhood.
Yes, they are.
Councillor Tamlin, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite familiar with this building because it was the Seropolis downstairs and the beauty place upstairs. I went to both.
Okay, lovely.
It has got a courtyard in there. It's absolutely beautiful little courtyard. But I don't know, perhaps I'm wrong, but has this come up before about the windows, and we sort of were objecting to it then? Or did they put a window in and we didn't like it or something? But there was this has come up before.
We had one quite close to this, I think, Councillor Tam. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. I think we had one along the Strand a little further at the back of what is the post office, and I think that had a similar, quite enclosed courtyard at the back with again beautiful windows. But it was about, and we had questions about the material, so it might be that one that you're thinking about. But I remember there was. It was about 4 or 5 doors down.
No, it was this one I was thinking about, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yana, do we know if it's been up before?
Sorry, Yoli, you're muted. The classic.
Yeah, I was just going to have a sneaky look on the iPad and hope that it would work fast enough to answer the question without the main screen. But I can't recall. That's not to say that it's not the case, but I will have a look while you're still deliberating.
Okay, thank you. Can we park that there, Councillor Tamlin, and come back to that? Thank you. Councillor Moorhood, if you'd like to go ahead, and thank you for your patience.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Obviously, we have some concerns and reservations, and I feel that's partly because we are not experts in conservation or in building. I certainly have some experience with these sort of buildings, and the comment about a neighbour not wanting them to put scaffold up on their side, I have that problem here. I don't think you can actually legally stop someone within reason. I've had to allow people to do things where their first floor overlaps my shed at the back, sort of thing. But I am still concerned. They have prepared a very impressive looking heritage statement, and yes, a lot of the things they've said are right, and they've said about the going to use all the new slate, but that's sort of glossed over the business of the actual windows and the materials and or insulation. Without using UPVC, they can still use glass, which is reflective and so forth. And my feeling, and I don't know if we can do this or whether anyone else would agree, my feeling is that rather than say we have no objections or yes, we object, that we could perhaps consider doing what we do when it's a question of a tree and we don't feel that we are fully qualified to comment on it. And I would like to say, whilst I have no major objections, I would like to defer this to the conservation officers at Timbers District Council for their, not their views, their decisions on it. I think they're the people who know what they're talking about. We all have ideas and we all have a certain amount of experience, but this is a very delicate thing with other neighbours involved. It's an old building, although, as they say, the front of it has been changed over the years and they don't know when. That's not, we can't do anything about that now. What we can do something about is the rear part being changed. And whilst, as Councillor Wrigley said, no one would want to stop them adding it, allowing extra light into rooms and so forth, it really needs to be looked into by someone who knows all the pros and cons, i.e. Conservation Department at Timbers District Council. Okay. That is my feeling.
Thank you for that, Councillor Moorhood. Councillor Lowther, you have your hand up. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Thank you. This is just an apology. I kind of glanced at this and thought it was a heritage report. Well, it was, but it wasn't until I had my glasses on and I saw the bottom that I realised that it wasn't from Timbridge. So apologies for misleading information.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yola, have you got anything more on whether we have seen this before or in answer to Councillor Tamlin's question at all?
Searching for the specific address, all I could see was earlier applications for change of use, I think obviously from businesses and things like that, so I couldn't see anything specific to the roof. Whether there's been any change of name or anything like that where it makes it a little bit more difficult to look up, but certainly from what I can see with the 40 The Strand or Clarendon House, that's all I could come up with was to change of uses.
Okay, so it would have flagged up something if this specific address would have come up, I would have thought.
Yes,
but
yes, it would. Yeah.
Okay, so was there anything else you wanted to add, Councillor Tamlin, or is you happy with that answer from you? Okay, thank you. Councillor Heath, please go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering if we could propose perhaps that we had no objections to this, subject to the Conservation Officer's final decision in the light of there's insufficient information given on materials and the management plan. What do you think of that?
So proposal with no objections if Conservation Officer is satisfied of design, materials and management plan. I've just added the design and materials because obviously both of those are important.
In the light of their information supplied, doesn't give sufficient information for us to make a decision one way or the other.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let's see if other members are happy and if we have anyone who is happy to second that proposal. Councillor Moorhood? I can see you have your hand raised, and then Councillor Taylor.
Yes, I wasn't thinking of seconding it as such.
No,
I would prefer to make a proposal that we defer this to the Timbridge District Council planning, subject to recommendations from their conservation officer.
I must admit I would interpret that not far from where Councillor Heath was pitching that, but slightly different words. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
I wasn't saying that we would accept it. I was basically getting out of that altogether.
Okay.
I feel very much on the fence because I can't see how we can say no objections or we object because it's not.
That is why I put forward the proposal, just to help us clarify our mind. I don't mind either way. So yeah, I'm happy with whatever.
I would just to see it deferred for consideration by Timbridge Planning and especially their conservation department, because it's only come in very recently, and they obviously haven't had the chance to look at it between the holidays and COVID and everything else. And I think it's come to us out of the blue. Sorry, it's just me.
No, okay. So Councillor Foden, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to second Councillor Moorhood's proposal.
Okay, well, I'm getting a little bit confused because now we've got two proposals and one seconder on here. So Yola, you've got your hand up. Were you about to say just the same thing then?
I would concur that I'm also confused. However, I did notice Councillor Taylor did have his hand up and was going to speak after Councillor Moorhood. I didn't know whether that was in response to the original proposal by Councillor Heath, or whether he doesn't want to speak. I didn't want to move on to a second proposal.
No.
The original one,
so if I may,
yes, please.
So just to clarify, the existing window in the dormer, which is to be replaced, is a casement window, but it is in a different pattern. So it's in a pattern that makes it look like a sash window, but it does open as a casement window. What the heritage statement doesn't say, it says the window is to be replaced, but it doesn't say whether that window is going to be in timber. So from the point, so I would withdraw any objection on the window side if it was a timber window. But from the point of view that there are casement windows, there is a casement window at the back, a single, and there are casement windows at the front of the building as well, which actually look very smart in combination with all of the other casement windows at lower level, at the first floor level. So there we are. Just sort of throw that in for good measure.
Thank you for that curveball there, Councillor Moorhood.
That's exactly why I've been feeling that we need to defer this for the conservation people and Timbridge planning. We don't know. It's insufficient. It obviously hasn't been studied by the conservation people, because they would automatically put in some kind of comment for this kind of application. And well, you know what I think. That's the whole point, Councillor Taylor, isn't it? We don't know what they want to do. They've told us quite clearly they're going to use the same slates and so forth, but we know nothing about what they're going to do with the windows. And I've got a feeling that maybe they think it's not that important because it's on the back of the building, but that's not the point. It is still a building smack in the middle of a conservation area. I use the word conservation again. I think they're the people who need to be making the decisions on this.
Okay, thank you. Your proposal, Councillor Moorhood, has been seconded by Councillor Foden, and I have Yola with her hands in the air. So please go ahead, Yola, before we go any further.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because I know obviously earlier on in the conversation you referred to how things are worded when it's really the tree officer that you would want to make a decision on something because of their expertise. And obviously in previous statements it's been worded in such a way that it's there'd been no objection subject to the whoever officer, tree officer, conservation officer being satisfied. It sounds as I'm getting the feeling that you're happy provided that the expert at Teambridge, the conservation officer, is happy they're using the appropriate design materials and management plan. So it's how you want to word it, whether you want to be saying that you have no opinion and you're deferring it to the conservation officer in Teambridge, or whether you're saying we would have no objection if those people are happy with it.
Well, the clarification that Councillor Moorhood, you obviously can speak for yourself, Councillor Moorhood, but the clarification that Councillor Moorhood just gave then was that it wasn't that it was, it's no objection. It's a case of actually we can have no opinion without having the further information from the conservation officer. So it would be there's no opinion on this situation, as we haven't got enough information to make a decision.
Can I just say something?
Okay, Councillor Heath, I know you have made a proposal. I know, but we haven't had a seconder. But please do go ahead.
Yes, just to help us all. I'll be happy to withdraw the proposal, whether it's seconded or not, if we can get the wording right. I'm not 100% happy on us deferring our responsibility as a sort of a legal sort of body to put some firm yes or no in and then give reasons and just pass it over, because it's not a tree, it is a proper planning thing. So if we could get the wording perhaps a bit right, I think perhaps tweak Councillor Moorhood's one a bit more, that we're not just not making the decision, we make it clear that we feel there's inadequate information on design, etc., as we talked about, to make a clear decision, and therefore we would want to defer it to the conservation officer's final decision. Even we could even put into it, we're happy to relook at it again at a later point after that, if you wanted to. I don't know. I think
by implication that might be the case, Councillor Heath, but I know, that's my interpretation of Councillor Moorhood's. But she has her hand raised, so I'll let her speak for herself. Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Carry on.
I'm happy to insert the phrase that we have insufficient information. You can say as regarding materials or design of the windows. And I would still say that I would defer to the conservation offices.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like we've come to an agreement. We have a proposal and a seconder. So if we can go to a vote, ladies and gentlemen, please. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, before we do go to
Yeah.
a vote.
We
Sorry,
just have voted. Councillor Taylor?
I got in before we vote this time. So
we just voted.
new matching dormer, timber frame structure with painted timber joinery window. There we are. So we do have the material. It's very difficult to see, unfortunately, on PowerPoint. I had to download that as a PDF to be able to read that. So from that point of view,
it is still an extra window on the back, isn't it? They're putting another window in.
There is an extra dormer with a cat slide roof. Existing materials replaced otherwise.
Which alters the building.
But we've
yes, it does. Sorry, I was
Chair,
I had my hand up just as you said, can we go to the vote? And I think you've anticipated that I was putting my hand up to vote for the.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
that's how it looked, I must admit. Okay.
Well, I don't think that my observation actually would change anybody's vote anyway, and it wouldn't change mine, because I do think we should defer to the conservation officer on other items, including the style of windows, etc. But I just thought I'd make that observation before we voted.
Thank you for your dogged determination.
Yes, you can take my hand up as voting in favour.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Okay, well, I believe we got there in the end. I'm not really sure. Yola, are you happy with the information you have there? Thank you. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience tonight. And that is our last item. So thank you very much for your time. Okay, bye-bye now.
Thank you.